Thank you. Councillors and staff and those people at home watching, welcome to our council meeting. As you're aware, the city had to make some changes to our council meetings due to the COVID-19 situation and the limits to gatherings put in place by the federal and state governments. This has included receiving written deputations and receiving public questions for the meeting in writing only prior to the meeting. Other parts of our normal agenda have been suspended as we are unable to have members of the public in the chamber at this time. This includes the public statement time and petitions being presented in person. Some of our councillors are participating via electronic means, and so although you cannot see them in the chamber, they are considered to be present at this meeting. We have made some arrangements to try and have them heard via our live streaming, but we cannot guarantee that that will occur. And I currently have Councillor Podovnik and Councillor Richardson live on a screen. The City of Swan disclaims any liability for any loss arising from any person or the body relying on any statement, discussion, recommendation or decision made during this meeting. Where an application for an approval, a licence or the like is considered or determined during this meeting, the City warns that neither the applicant nor the other person or body should rely upon the discussion or determination until written notice of either an approval and the conditions which relate to it or the refusal of the application has been issued by the City. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. The recording will be archived and made available on the City's website after the meeting. Attendances and apologies. All councillors with the exception of Councillor McNamara who is on leave, and as previously mentioned, Councillors Podovnik and Richardson who are, well, Councillor Richards is present, Councillor Podovnik is just dealing with a technical issue.
Councillor Jones is running late.
And Councillor Jones is running late. And Councillor Podovnik and Councillor Richardson I approved earlier, and Councillor Podovnik has now joined us. Declarations of financial and proximity interest and interest affecting impartiality. Mr CEO. I've got them if you haven't.
No, that's right. They are listed.
Yep.
Plus.
Okay, councillors, there are declarations from CEO Foley, Councillor Kiley on 13.6, Councillor Jones on 2.1, Councillor Kiley on 1.3, Councillors Congdon, Jones, McCulloch and Scanlon on 3.2, which is the Community Care Service Review. Are there any more?
Yeah, Mr Mayor. On item 3.4, Councillor Congdon's declared impartiality, and that is your previous climate of dynamic planning. That's the security. What's 3.4? What's the second word? Security.
Security poles and associated infrastructure in Swan Street.
And item Community Care Services 3.2. I think that one's you've already listed that one.
Yes.
Councillor Rod Henderson's expressed an impartiality in item C 1.4. That's the funding for the VCR 88.5 radio station, and that he's declared the impartiality in that he's an ordinary member of the VCA, not a committee member, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
They're the only two I have in addition to the ones listed.
Any other declarations from either councillors or staff? None. Public question time. In-person public question time has been suspended at this time, and all questions have been required, or were required to be submitted in writing prior to this meeting. No questions were received prior to the meeting regarding items on the agenda. Other questions have been received from Ms Stephanie Radis, Mr Bob Ellsbury, Mr Dave Glossop, Ms Naomi Campbell and Ms Karen Wyatt. All responses to questions have been provided, and these questions are to be tabled and will be published in the minutes of the meeting. Questions and answers recorded in the minutes of the meeting may be summarised in accordance with the Local Government Act Administration Regulations of 1996. Questions and answers marked with an asterisk have been amended either for the purpose of summarising, for example, removing preamble statements, etc., or editing. 5.1 Answers to questions which were taken on notice. Questions taken on notice at the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 8th of April 2020 from Ms Naomi Jenkin are included in the agenda. Questions relating to reports contained in the agenda. 5.2.1 Questions for which due notice has been given, I have nil. 5.2.2 Questions without due notice, I also have nil. Other questions, I have questions from Ms Stephanie Radis, and some of those questions have been answered, those that haven't been taken on notice and will be answered. Also questions from Mr Bob Ellsbury, with the majority bar one, I believe, that has not been answered but will be forwarded to him. Questions from Mr Dave Glossop, of which some have been answered and the rest will be forwarded. Questions from Miss Naomi Jenkins have all been answered. Questions from Miss Karen Mowat have also been answered. Questions without notice, I have nil. Councillors, that takes us now to the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law. And there is a motion based on legal advice for a rescission of that decision of Council on the 8th of April 2020. I will need a mover and a seconder, and I still will need an absolute majority of 8 for that rescission, councillors. So can I have a mover? Moved Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Kiley. If there's no one against, I still need 8. Okay. Councillors, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of the rescission? Councillor Johnson, Councillor Henderson, Zanino, Lucas, Kiley, Parry, Congerton, myself, Councillor Scanlon, McCulloch and Jones. Well and truly carried.
But Councillor Catalano is against.
Councillor Catalano was against, yep. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that now takes us, we've dealt with that. Now we go straight to Councillor Johnson with a further motion. Councillor Johnson, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, Mr Mayor, my alternate Part B motion is that Council resolve to suspend the following clauses of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019 in accordance with Section 10.41 of the Local Government Act 1995 as amended, except by the Local Government Amendment COVID-19 Response Act 2020 for council meetings held during the duration of the state of emergency and public health emergency in response to COVID-19 coronavirus, and that these matters be determined at the discretion of the presiding member as follows. 2.4 public statement time, 2.51b petitions, 2.6 deputations, 4.1 members to occupy own seats, 4.4 entering or crossing or leaving a meeting, 4.5 members who wish to speak, 2. Advise the Minister for Local Government of the Council's resolution. 3. Record the reasons for changing the officer's recommendation. A. The health part of this emergency is near its end in WA, as the Minister for Health has advised there is no community transmission of COVID-19. B. There have been, change this bit, 7 days with 0 new COVID-19 cases. C. Council needs to continue to deliver its functions by adhering to its normal practices as closely as possible. D. Council should suspend only the parts of the meeting procedures that need to be suspended to comply with Gatherings Directive. These include public statements, petitions, deputations, members to occupy their own seats, entering, crossing or leaving a meeting, members who wish to speak. E. Business to be specified, 2.13, is needed in order to continue adjourned meetings from the point at which it left off. The COVID-19 emergency does not impact adjourned business. F. Council can change the order of business in 2.2 by resolution. G. By suspending clauses 2.8 and 2.11 in their entirety, councils are reliant on the discretion of the presiding member with no objective criteria given to how this discretion is to be applied. This may result in councils being unable to raise business on behalf of the community due to other competing priorities. H. There is no reason to suspend the order of debate. I. Suspending procedural motions prevents us from adjourning meetings after 4 hours, and many other important procedural motions.
Seconder. Seconded to Councillor Catalano. Is anyone against? Councillor Parry.
Wish to make an amendment, Mr Mayor.
Okay, an amendment. Let's hear it.
Can I please ask Councillor Johnson to add back in 2.13, brackets 3, 2.2 and 7.4, please?
Because I had my book closed, Councillor, could you just repeat that?
So 2.1 bracket 3, 2.2 and 7.4.
2.1 bracket 3, 2.2
and 7.4.
And
7.4, please. I hope so. Okay, that's fine. That's correct.
no, I don't agree with that.
And second is the same. Do you wish to move it as an amendment, Councillor Parry?
Yes, I
You'll
do.
need to debate it. Okay. Can you just move your amendment?
Sorry, what's the process?
Well, your amendment would read that you move that those 3 items be included.
So I wish to move those 3 items to be included. Yes, please.
Question, Mr Mayor. Is it not contrary to my motion, which is to remove those items, to try to put them back in again?
Ms Albright? I don't think so, because we've added back in items to motions as long as I've been here.
But the motion is actually to go against the recommendation from staff.
Yeah,
Those actually,
we've
so it actually goes against the motion.
well, no, I can't agree with you, Councillor, because Councillor Johnson has moved to remove items from the report, and another councillor has asked them to be put back in, so it's not contrary to the motion.
Question, Mr Mayor. Surely it's completely 180 degrees opposite. It's completely orthogonal to it. It's just completely, totally different.
I'll get advice from our manager of governance, and then when we'll move on, and Councillor, I have a seconder, so I'll get advice from Ms Albright, and then we'll go straight to the debate. Ms Albright.
Thank you, Councillor. I can't give you legal advice, but I don't think that it is contrary to your motion. I think it is a compromise to your motion, because what it's doing is it's still excluding clauses 2.8 and 2.11, which were part of your amendment to what the officer recommendation was. Because your motion is essentially it's an alternate motion to the officer recommendation that essentially amends the officer recommendation. Councillor Parry is proposing a second amendment to that, which you have, as is your right, rejected. That now can be debated as an amendment. If that amendment passed, then it becomes part of your substantive motion. But it doesn't completely negate your motion, because you're still the bulk of your motion is still the same.
Yeah. Okay. So, thank you. So, on that basis, you wish to debate. So, Councillor Johnson, you can open the debate.
No. Councillor Parry.
Sorry, Councillor Parry. Yeah, thank you. You're moving the amendment. Thank you, Councillor Parry.
I think Ms Albright explained it very well to everyone, councillors. I think this just makes it more efficient and makes council meetings more effective, and that's all. That's the only reason why I'm moving it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas is the seconder.
Yes, I believe that, particularly in recording the reason for changing the recommendations, the health part of the emergency is near at its end. I don't think anyone can state that with any clarity. There may not have been any reported cases in the last week, but I think there's still a state of emergency does exist. I think it's entirely right that council or the presiding member should have the opportunity of changing the order of business rather than resolution by council. So I think there is a reason to suspend the order of debate. There may be issues that we may not get to, and we may want to adopt all those items that weren't withdrawn for debate and pass them en bloc, so people can have certainty going forward rather than delaying them and going forward to the next. I think this is a fair compromise. It's a mix between what the officer's recommendation and the alternative motion by Councillor Johnson, and I fully support the motion of Councillor Parry.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you're supposed to speak against the amendment.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, look, I've had a bit of time to think about this now. The changes that Councillor Parry's proposing, 2.13 doesn't really make much difference, neither does 2.2, but 7.4 is actually quite a significant change. By eliminating all of our procedural motions, if councillors want to actually take a look at the procedural motions list, what do you know, it's on page 16, it's already open at that point. It basically prevents us from raising points of order, pointing out that people are interrupting people. It prevents the presiding member giving rulings. It prevents the presiding member doing all. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong section here. Preservation. Sorry, councillor, got a bit lost there. 7.4 significantly changes. It is the list of procedural motions, so that the motion now be put, that the meeting proceed to the next business, that the matter lie on the table, which we've never used, that debate be adjourned, that the meeting be adjourned. So we can't actually adjourn a meeting if we remove this. It just becomes an has to carry on until it's finished.
Please,
Just 1 second, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Lucas?
Yes, I just want to clarify from my reading of the amendment put by Councillor Parry on 7.4, how dealt with and the effect procedural motions. It only specifies that the meeting be adjourned. All those other items raised by Councillor Johnson aren't specified in the amendment, and that's the only one that I believe Councillor Parry, that's the intent of the amendment. Thank you.
Yep, that's correct. I see it too. So if you could carry on, Councillor Johnson, and just remember that.
All right. So it's not completely clear in there, Mr. Mayor. So what we're saying then is that all these other procedural motions are still valid. The only one we've got is that the meeting be adjourned. But we need to be able to adjourn the meeting. So why can't we decide to adjourn the meeting? Why does it need to be left to the presiding member? I think it's something that we need to keep. So that's the prime reason I don't agree with it. Look, councillors, my original alternate motion proposed that the bare minimum changes are needed to support the fact that this council chamber cannot be a public place during the COVID-19 emergency, as it would be a breach of the prohibited gatherings direction of 27th of April. Councillors, because this is a non-work gathering, we can have more than 10 people present. Sorry, I'm getting that wrong as well. If this was a public meeting and we had the public here, it would be in breach of the gatherings direction. But it is a work meeting. We can have more than 10 people present. So therefore, the need to restrict the meeting somehow is really not needed. I was in a work meeting this morning that lasted for 3 hours, councillors, and that was perfectly lawful. So a work meeting can go on for more than 2 hours, and that's the reason why we don't need to make this change to 7.4, because I believe our meetings need to continue for as long as they need to continue. Councillors, Mr. Mayor, a 4-hour council meeting does comply with the recently revised, less restrictive closure and restriction limit the spread directions. So, Mr. Mayor, we know it's been 7 days since the last new case of COVID. The WA Health Minister has stated on TV there is no community transmission. In short, it's very low risk for us to hold council meetings that are closed to the public. The emergency, we know, comes in 2 parts, the health emergency and the economic emergency. So last night we heard on TV that 225,000 West Australians have lost their jobs. Many people in our community are facing loss of job and income, and I think quite a few people in this room are probably aware of that. Councillors, we need to resume the normal business of council meetings as far as we can as a workplace, because we're no longer a public meeting. If our meetings need to go for 4 hours, and that is relevant to item 7.4 here, to help with this economic crisis, which is where we're dealing now, we need to address the economic crisis in our community, then why shouldn't our meetings go for 4 hours? Why can't we resume our briefings? We need to have another budget briefing and a COVID-19 briefing at a minimum. Councillors, my original motion, makes the minimum changes to our meeting procedures to comply with the closure and restriction limit the direction of spread. So we need to get back to work. Councillors, I strongly recommend that we support this motion, or my original motion. So please reject Councillor Parry's amendment and go ahead with and support my original motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson. Question, Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question for the mover, please. Councillor Parry, I was just wanting to ask you if you could explain why you want to change 7.4.
I think
You go.
you had the opportunity to do that in debate, but you do still have the right of reply, so you could address that in the right of reply.
I still believe it's within the guidelines provided by, I forget which department in the Australian government, Mr. Mayor, but there's still clear guidelines for 2-hour meetings in regards to everything that we do. It's guidelines, so that's the rules.
But don't
Guidelines,
interrupt, Councillor.
and
You've had
all
your
due
crack and you'll
respect,
get a right of reply. Remember
Mr. Mayor, I prefer to protect my health, and I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody else as well. That's the main reason.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've had Councillor Johnson speak against the motion. Anyone for? Speak against the motion? Okay, be no other speakers. Councillor, I'll put the amendment. Those in favour of Councillor Parry's amendment? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those against? Okay, so the amendment is carried 8-6. Now becomes part of the substantive motion. I have a mover and a second for the substantive motion. Is there anyone against? Be no one against, we declare it carried. Okay, so public take time has been suspended. Petitions, councillors, you would have received any petitions. I have not got notification of any, Mr CEO.
Oh, none for me.
Deputations, any deputations writing have been received and distributed. Announcement by the presiding member. I have a very important announcement this evening, councillors, and it is Councillor Zanino's 70th birthday. So, Councillor Zanino, on behalf of the entire City of Swan, we wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors?
Does that mean you can't go shopping anymore?
No?
Thank you, councillors. We shall now continue, and thank you for that. Congratulations to Councillor Zanino. Okay, members' questions. 10.1 is members' questions to which were taken on notice. I have nil. 10.2, questions for which due notice has been given. Have questions from Councillor Johnson, which have been answered. Questions for which due notice has not been given. Are there any questions from any councillors that notice has not been given? Being none, we'll move on. Item 11 is leave of absence. Mr CEO.
Mr Mayor, I've received one from yourself, the Mayor, Councillor Bailey, for leave of absence from the 13th of May to the 16th of May. Mr Mayor.
Okay. Any other leave of absence? Be none. Can I have a move that be accepted? A seconder. Moved Councillor Zanino, seconded Councillor Parry. Confirmation of the minutes of the April the 8th meeting and the 15th of April 2020 council meeting. I move that those minutes be accepted. Moved Councillor McCulloch, the seconder. Councillor Parry. Anyone against? Declare those carried. Item 13, business left over from the previous meeting. Item 13.6, proposed garage addition and overwidth driveway at Lot 5, number 54, Victoria Street, Guildford. Can I have a mover? Moved Councillor Johnson, a seconder. Councillor Henderson. Anyone against? Declare that carried. That takes us now to Part B, councillors, and we move to item 1.1, which is the COVID-19 hardship policy. And there is an alternative motion from Councillor Prodovnik. Now, Councillor Prodovnik, the audio from your end is pretty average. Are you okay if I get someone in the gallery, either a staff member or a councillor, to read your motion?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but given that other people listening in and watching may not be able to hear you overly well, I just wonder if you would mind if someone in the gallery read that motion for you.
Someone else
Are
here.
you okay with that?
That's fine, she can do it.
Barry?
Can't hear her now.
No, you're dropping in and out, councillor.
Can you try to unmute me again?
No, we can hear you now.
We can hear you now.
I mean, you can read if you wish. I was
You
just
can read if you wish.
you can read if you wish.
Go for it.
How bad is it everyone?
Look, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
We can hear you, but
People on the live stream
just-
can't hear you. It's
so-
the complaint.
Look, as long as you can hear me.
That's fine. Go for it.
so you wish to read it?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'll just try and smash it through and move along quickly
Okay,
and hopefully get the result.
take it away.
Do you want me to read the amendment to the motion?
Look, because of the guidelines on debt recovery on page 18, and there's a fair bit more in your motion, so and the actual changes aren't highlighted, so you might need to move through those paragraphs where you've amended something. So in those clauses 1 through 5, particularly if you could highlight the changes to what's in the staff report specifically, if you could do that, if you wish, if you've got them highlighted.
No worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have. Thank you. I'll just I'll try and do this as possible. All right, so...
Take your time, councillor.
Sorry?
Take your time.
Okay, so the first one is point one, just enables debt to be cleared over 2 years instead of 1 year, and a further opportunity to adhere to the payment plan that will clear the total debt by the end of 2022-23 financial year. Point two, I've just added, and those who have been adversely impacted by COVID-19 will be assessed on a case-by-case basis to be covered by the provisions of this policy, and that same sentence applies to commercial lease holders as well. Point four, advise ratepayers about the treatment of COVID-19 financial hardship policy, including what an adversely impacted ratepayer has to do to enact the COVID-19 financial hardship policy provisions and encourage eligible ratepayers to apply for hardship consideration in a flyer in the 2021 rate notice mail-out. Point 5 is just advise ratepayers they can all apply to have their rates deferred if they have a pension card, state concession card, seniors card or Commonwealth seniors card, healthcare card, as registered on their property in the 2021 and future rate notices mail-out. And to record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is to provide additional relief for the community and businesses in the draft COVID-19 financial hardship policy and improve the city's communication with ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor. The seconder. Councillor Scanlon is seconder. Is there anyone against? There is. Councillor Congerton. Wish to debate it? Councillors, wish to debate it? Yes? I thought you might. Okay, Councillor Budovnik, you can open the debate.
Great, thank you. All right, so at a special meeting on April 15, Council resolved to provide rate relief through flexible payment options. And tonight I'm asking Council to support lower repayment amounts over a longer period of time in keeping with that resolution. Team financial hardship policy is supposed to give more relief than we usually do in our current process to those directly impacted. Our current process uses a 2-year time frame. It condenses debt repayments into 1 year and it keeps an additional year on standby should people need it. My motion uses a 2-year time frame, but it spreads the payment plan out over 2 years. It utilises the standby year immediately to ensure fortnightly repayments are lower and more achievable for those in real hardship. The extra 1 year has come in response to the COVID-19 impact and will only be used by those who need it. In an email dated May 3, staff confirmed a ratepayer impacted by COVID-19 is likely to need 2 years to clear their debt, and that it is common for ratepayers in arrears to need 2 years to clear their debt. So we can safely say those impacted by COVID-19 will need 2 years, and I'm asking Council to support giving them 2 years straight away in a payment plan that allows lower repayments over 2 years instead of higher repayments over 1 year. This motion has come in response to a need. A number of ratepayers in arrears have contacted me on Facebook, and the overwhelming feedback I have received is the impact of the interest rate they are charged. Now, Council has already responded and waived interest charges for 1 year on rate debt in the 2020-21 financial year, and people in hardship can request their interest charges be waived under this proposed policy. So we are giving ratepayers a lot of help here, but we can do more. The ratepayers I spoke to say their repayment plans are too high. They say more amounts over a longer period of time will enable them to clear other debts, and once those debts are cleared, they will have more money to put on their rate debt. I'm asking Council to please support my motion. It is in line with our Council resolution to provide rate relief through flexible payment options, and it's a small change in the draft that will make a big difference. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Scanlon is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to comment that Councillor Budovnik has done a wonderful thing for the community in bringing this motion to Council. She's hearing the people. I've heard many comments about concern with rates as well, and this motion will go a long way to helping the residents of the City of Swan to be able to recover from this economic loss. Thank you for bringing it to Council, Councillor Budovnik.
Thank you, Councillor Scanlon. Councillor Congerton, Speaker against the motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we have already the officer's financial hardship policy that this has been amended to that policy. The one thing that concerns me is number 5. Number 5, advise ratepayers they can all apply. All apply to have their rates deferred if they have a pensioner card, a state concession card, and the one in particular that concerns me is a seniors card. I know a lot of seniors with a seniors card that don't necessarily have an empty bank balance. They're quite wealthy. A seniors card is distributed to members of society who don't fulfil the 20-hour per week compliance. And I have several neighbours that have seniors cards that could pay their rates comfortably. So the mere adding of a seniors card to this and saying anyone can apply, in fact all can apply, is a worry to me. If there is the mechanism which is to apply for the hardship policy by a demonstration of whatever means is to be determined, then that resolves the issue. But to state that there is a pensioner card, a state concession card and the seniors card is something I can't accept. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Congleton. A speaker for the motion. Speakers.
Can I just ask you a question?
You wish.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can ask a question.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to ask Kim Lay to please confirm that those cards listed are actually, people are eligible to have their rates deferred under those cards under state or federal government policy anyway. Is that correct?
Ms Lay?
No.
You need to unmute yourself, Kim.
Kim, unmute.
So, Ms Lay, can you answer that question? You just need to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm just referring to information on our website. There is the people who are eligible for a senior card, pension card or concession card are entitled to cap rebate and the ability to defer rates. So holders of a senior card and Commonwealth Senior Health card and defer are able to apply to some rate and Thank you. I just wanted to just to answer Councillor Congleton.
No. You've Councillor Podovnik. You asked a question. What you're going to do is back in debate. You have to wait for your right to reply. Okay. Okay, councillors. Okay. Any other speakers? Councillor Kiley speaking. For the motion, I would assume. Yes.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Councillor Podovnik, thank you for all the work you've done on this. I know you've put a lot into it over the past few weeks, and thank you for preparing that with staff, with the assistance of staff, and happy birthday to you too, Councillor Zanino. Councillors, the theme for tonight might be we're all in this together, and that might appear in numerous speeches tonight. We're all in this together. I think we've got this is a great opportunity to look into the hardships that people will be facing, and we've got to offer that to everybody within the community. And even if they are, people with pensioner cards, state concession cards, I don't expect, as Councillor Congleton points out, that just because we've given them that opportunity, that they're all going to rush out and take that opportunity. Those who have the means to pay their way, I'm sure, will not be fronting up asking for a deferment. I think that they've got a responsibility to the broader community, to the people who they live with in the community, to actually not just take opportunities to defer rates when they can. And I don't think we're going to get a rush. I think we will only get genuine inquiries, and this will just have to be a staff requirement through you, Mayor, that we will have to adhere to. We would have to put this to staff and query any claim that might come before us. So I think we need to make it fair. We're all in this together. We need to support the community, and I think Councillor Podovnik's motion is right on the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Lucas.
Yes, thank you. And I had quite a lengthy conversation with Councillor Podovnik yesterday or the day before, and suggested a couple of things. But to me, this reminds me of the bank system, where they offer you an interest-only repayment system, and you actually never address the real issue of diminishing the principal, or a redraw system where you can pay some money off and you can then redraw it. If and the current motion, or the current staff recommendation about the debt recovery during this unusual and unprecedented times, actually allows debt to be cleared over 2 years without adding that third additional year in. I think the main point that the city needs to do is those people who need assistance must apply to go on a rate payment scheme. And then the city will negotiate with every individual ratepayer a payment plan. And obviously we want them to clear that debt. But to say, let's just put the debt off for another year, actually will put them in a worse position, I believe. The thing is that if there is a debt to be paid, and even the state government and the federal government say, well, you still have that debt. It's not going to be wiped. You just need to negotiate a fair and reasonable payment. I strongly support the fact that we should put a small flyer in our rate notices saying, if you need assistance, here's the contact you go to, either a phone number or an email, so those people can individually apply to go on a payment system. But by making and extending the time longer and longer, I think we'll only put people further and further into debt, and I don't think that's the correct way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thank you, and yes, thank you for putting this motion up. I think the difference is between, you know, some interest-free loan that a bank might give at any ordinary time to somebody that's struggling. This isn't an ordinary time, and we're going to have a lot of people out of work. 10%, perhaps higher, of people are going to be made unemployed. Now, the thing is that it doesn't appear that it's likely that they're going to be unemployed for a very long time, because it's just a question of the economy starting up again. The thing is that the City of Swan is an organisation, a multi-million-dollar organisation that is guaranteed an income through rates each year. So it can well afford to make these adjustments to meet what are actually exceptional circumstances. They're not ordinary, everyday circumstances that these people out there who are losing their jobs or who've lost their jobs are facing. This is exceptional circumstances, and we have to actually go that little bit further for those people. I would hate to see that through some kind of, because we can't go that extra mile for ratepayers, that we see a rapid rise in foreclosures in the City of Swan. It is just absolutely not on. We're a multi-million-dollar organisation. We can wear it for the next 18 months to 2 years while people are getting back on their feet, getting their jobs again and getting back on track financially. This is the least we can do, and everybody here should vote for it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Catalano. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Parry.
I just want to bring to attention, councillors, can we please go to page 205 in the ordinary council briefing that we have? It's a very quick one for you, councillors. If you look at the liquidity graph that we have, if we sustain, so in your analysis on slide 1, we have expected arrears of $15 million. You do that over 2 years, $30 million. You have a stimulus package as well for $8 million. That liquidity that we have there will not sustain that amount. We don't have endless amounts of money here, councillors. We have to fund maintenance, we have to fund repairs, we have to fund everything else as well. And I understand the community's sentiment in regards to this. However, we must be prudent in how we realise our fiscal management. That's important as well. I think 1 year, yes, I can live with. 2 years, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been quite interesting listening to this. In the section about pensioner cards, state concession cards, seniors cards and Commonwealth senior cards, I guess on the one hand there's the view that they're all quite well off and therefore they won't need it. And then there's the other view that, they're not working anyway and may not be impacted by the economic crisis. So just reading the state concession card, there's without a means test, it says totally and permanently incapacitated pensioners, extreme disablement, blinded war pensioners, TB sufferers, etc. Councillors, item 5 I don't believe is a reason to vote against this, because I don't believe it's going to lead to a very large number of people applying to have their rates deferred. I think people in this category, if they can afford it, they will afford it, and if they are reliant on state and government pensions, then that money will continue. So I think that 5 is unlikely to lead to a major liquidity issue. And if you do defer your rates, you've still got to pay your rates. You're still paying them. It's still going to be paid eventually. And I think, as another councillor said, we're in a position to borrow the money and they may not be. So councillors, don't be concerned about Section 5. I think the thrust of the whole motion is excellent and supports the community at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Henderson, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't going to speak on this because I'm in favour of the officer's recommendation. But the few things have been said that do concern me a little bit. For starters, from what I can see, if you think of it like this, let's say you're already in arrears, and let's say you have a $2,000 rate bill. If you look at what's being proposed, you end up with paying half of it off in the course of the next year. In the course of next year, you'll have a $2,000 rate bill. So you'll end up with $3,000 you've got to pay off. If you end up in the second year, you end up with half being paid off of your debt. In other words, it just builds and builds. It gets to a point where you're a little bit like the bank card. You're stuck with having to pay endlessly pay off the principal. So that worries me. But more importantly, I think our ratepayers expect the council to be prudent and responsible in how we deal with the organisational structure, how we do the works that they need done. These are the things that we've got to set a reasonable rate for. We've got to set a rate that the Premier tells us has got to be no rate rise from last year. Yet here we are in a position where ultimately your rates could rise or fall because the gross rental values and the revaluations for the year are still going to be done. So fundamentally, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place on what rates you might end up with in any case. So from my perspective, I think it's prudent for us to set a zero rate rise related, in fact, to no increase in our operating cost. Now, if you want to try and understand that, that means that the valuation has got to be effectively zero change from last year. So getting down to the fundamentals on this, if we stick with where we are, we help people that need help, we probably find that most people put aside money for their rates anyhow. They get their pensions, as mentioned, to be able to deal with their rates. For me, it's a matter of us doing prudent, proper job of managing the organisation, and I think what we have in the officer's recommendation is the best way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Any other speakers for or against? Okay, being no other speakers, I'll just make this quick comment in regards to paragraph 1, where we're talking about a 2-year, basically interest-free. Just remember, councillors, on your rates notice there's a little thing put on there by the state called the ESL. So anyone that may be in arrears now has the ESL probably outstanding, plus over the next 2 years the rates will have ESL, and when they're outstanding they are subject to 11% late payment interest fee by the state. So as previous mentioning, by allowing people to go over 2 years, all we're doing is building debt on top of debt, and we know how that works with credit cards. It gets everyone in trouble, so I can't support that. And in relation to item 5, I would assume that most of the people in that category, God bless them, are usually the people that pay their rates on time. And and they get a bit of a discount, and also that predominantly they are people that would not be working and financially would not be affected by the COVID-19 virus. So, on the motion, councillors, who was the mover here? Councillor Podolnik, on closing debate, your right of reply.
All right, so the reason I just wanted to address point 5. This is actually already included in the policy that people may apply for this, and I've just made it clearer in my motion to let people understand that they actually can apply for it. It is the state and federal government regulations, so we're not giving them something that they can't already apply for, and it's a definite. So that's why I've just put it in point 5. Really, it's just communicating with our ratepayers a bit better. That's the opportunity I'd like us to take if possible. Also, I just want to address the concern that people need to clear their debt in 1 year or their debt will compound. Now, I do understand that, but let's just have another look at it. Many people are already struggling to repay their debts in 1 year. That's why we have rate debt of 12.4 million, and that's why we're already offering people an extra year to pay. We're already offering them that. The impact of COVID-19 has the city predicting a rate that will hit potentially 15 million. So why wouldn't we offer one extra year in these extraordinary times? The city of Swan is not going to go under if we give people an extra year to pay. Economists are now talking about a recession. A lot of people will think, and I'm asking council to throw them a lifeline and to please support this small amendment in our COVID-19 hardship policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Podolnik. I now put the motion. Those in favour? Councillor Scanlon, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Johnson and Councillor Zanino and Councillor Richardson. So that gives us 1, 2, hands up, councillors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against will obviously be the other 7. I knew it wouldn't take long, Johnny Mack. Okay, councillors, I'm sorry, but I have to stick with my original motion and vote against the motion, so therefore it fails. So, councillors, we now move the we need to move the officers.
Yes, you do.
Yep, move the officers' recommendation. Councillors, move Councillor McCulloch, a seconder. Councillors to the office, move to Councillor Lucas. Is there anyone against? There is. We don't need to debate it. Okay, councillor, put it to vote. Those in favour of the officers' recommendation. 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Okay.
You got the 5 against? You want the 5 against? You got them?
5. Okay.
You got them all?
Okay.
Amanda, what are we voting for? Where are we?
The officers' recommendation. So, vote. Yep. 9 in favour, 5 against. So the officer recommendation is carried.
We've got those listed. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
So what?
We've got them listed.
Yep, we've got them listed. Yep. Okay. That now takes us to item 3.4, which are the security poles and associated infrastructure at number 136 Swan Street. And Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, my motion for item 3.4 is that the Council resolve to 1. Refuse approval for the application for 6 security poles and associated infrastructure to be located at number 136 Swan Street, Guildford, for the following reasons. 1. The proposed security poles are considered to have an adverse visual impact on the streetscape of Swan Street and on the riverine landscape of the abutting foreshore of the Swan River. 2. The proposed security infrastructure that are the purpose for the erection of the poles, being the lighting, audio devices and cameras, are considered to present an adverse impact on the amenity of adjoining properties. 3. The Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions is unable to support the location or height of security poles 4 to 6 as they do not meet the general objectives of Policy Number 42, Planning for Land Use Development and Permitting affecting the Swan Canning Development Control Area, and Policy Number 48, Planning for Development Setback Requirements affecting the Swan Canning Development Control Area.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Johnson. Is there anyone against? Thank you. We'll declare that carried. And just quickly, for those that are viewing online, if you could be aware, if you're not muted and you're moving stuff around on your desk, comes through quite loudly here, makes it difficult to hear those speaking. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Councillors, now that takes us to item 5.4, which is the proposed 2021 differential rates and special area rates, and a motion from Councillor Kiley. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, my motion is to defer a decision on this item for a special meeting of Council to be held on Monday the 11th of May to permit additional time for councillors to consider the impact of advertising the increase in the rates in the dollar.
Okay. That was secondary Councillor Johnson. And is there anyone against? Is there no one against? Case. Okay. Okay, there is Councillor McCulloch. Do you wish to debate it, councillors? Okay, Councillor Kiley. Don't wish to debate it? No? Okay, in that case, Council will put a vote. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Needless to say, the other 7 against. And 7, and I'll use my casting vote against the motion. Thank you. It fails. That takes us now to... Yep, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, my proposed motion is that Council resolve to advertise the following differential rates, a minimum rate for the 2020-2021 financial year. At this point, Mr. Mayor, I have to read out a table, so I'll do my best. So, residential category, rate in the dollar, 7.5088 cents. Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, just want to clarify that what's on the board is correct, councillors?
Yeah. Same as last year. Mr. Mayor, just seek direction here. Do you want me to read this out, or?
Well, you probably need to go. If the charts are fine, then you could just go straight to your reasoning on page 24. Okay. Just in summary of that table, councillors, those numbers are exactly the same as the last financial year. That's what we advertise. The reasons for changing the office's recommendation are that ratepayers are expecting their rates to go down in line with the reduction in their property values. Ratepayers are expecting rates relief as a result of the COVID-19 health and economic emergency. Keeping the city budget at the same level as last year will not stop most ratepayers' rates from increasing because GRV has changed as a result of the revaluation. If Council reduces the city budget by, and change at this point, Mr. Mayor, we received advice this afternoon from Ms. Lay, and I recall the number was $12 million. May I ask if that number is correct? Ms. Lay, is that correct? 12 million? Just nod if it is. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Carry on.
If Council reduces the city budget by $12 million to keep the rate in the dollar the same as last year, then any rate rise will be a result of the state government revaluation. Council can reduce the budget by $12 million for 1 year by deferring computer system and vehicle purchases and selling unproductive assets. 6. Council needs to advertise its intention to keep the rate in the dollar unchanged in response to the COVID-19 crisis.
Thank you, Councillor. Have a seconder? Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? There is. I would suggest we need to debate it. So before we do that, I'm just going to, with your indulgence, ask Ms. Lay just to comment briefly on where this sits and the effects on our budget. If you wouldn't mind, Ms. Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, Council's resolution for the 16th of April was to prepare a draft budget based on 0% rate rise. Now, in accordance with Council's approved rate methodology, this means that the level of total rate income for the same base rate data in 2021 needs to be the same now as that rate during 1920. As we know, the state government didn't do the revaluation, so we had to take that information in and use our rates in the dollar. And this means that the book in the dollar has to change. We can't give effect to the current council resolution on the basis of the differential rates that are proposed in the bid of the motion. We also can't use the statement of objects and reasons for this proposed alternate motion because they also need to be reckoned. And this approach can be compliant with Council's approved rating in the doc that you adopted in 2017. The critical point here is that we can't advertise differential rates. We don't have a draft budget that supports them. The Act clearly states that proposed rates must be on the basis of a local government estimate of the budget efficiency. Now, if we were to give effect to this alternate motion, we would need a council resolution directing that the draft annual budget be prepared on the basis that the new valuations are taken in and the differential rate is kept the same as last year. But council also needs to accept that for this year you will not be compliant with council approved rates in the dollars. We would then need to prepare the budget on that basis, remodel the rates to support that new draft budget, and present that back to council to advertise differential rates. We know the likely deficit is now in the order of $12 million. It means you need to look at trade services or projects or increasing borrowing to cover that. It could be managed through the deferral of most of the projects that are outcomes of treatment for this alternate motion, and that's because they're mostly not linked to municipal funds. And Mr. Mayor, this work will take weeks to complete, after which we would need to still advertise differential rates, but it's likely that your budget would be delayed until August. This then delays the issuing of the rate notices, which in turn delays the first instalment date, and that, Mr. Mayor, is where you start impacting cash flow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lay. Okay. Do we want to ask questions of Ms. Lay, Council, or we just continue with the debate?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Question?
In the chart that's on the board and in the agenda, particularly in relation to commercial industry and heavy industry, are they exactly the same as last year or different? Is there any difference in any of the rate and the dollar in any of those on the board?
I can't see the board, but the alternate motion that Councillor Johnson submitted to the city reflects the same rates in the dollar as current.
Thank you.
So, councillors, you have the chart that is in the recommendation already for our staff, which shows the difference between those rates. Should have it in your report, I would think. So there is a differential on the rate and the dollar on every rate with the exception of UV commercial. Yep, that's the only one, councillors, that is different. The UV commercial.
Page 39 of the supplementary agenda. Supplementary.
I've got it. Page 39 will have that on, councillor. Predominantly, the rate in the dollar is lower on just about everything last year. So, page 39, councillors, your supplementary agenda. So, you all got that, councillors? Okay. So, if you've all got that, we'll go back to the debate and let's the first question. Yep.
So, I just want to clarify that the figures that are before us now, that are being proposed in this motion, are the same rate in the dollar as what ratepayers were charged in 2019 and 20.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's exactly right. That's what I want to know.
That's correct.
Yeah. Good, thank you.
But the point I'm making is they are different to what's in the proposed scenario as adopted from the council motion on the 8th of April.
Yep.
Okay.
15.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Further question, Councillor Johnson.
Listening to what Ms. Lace says, I believe I need to add an additional item into this motion, requesting the CEO to prepare a budget to support these GRV values.
Oh, hang on a second.
I second that.
So I think I need to put that in, Mr. Mayor. No, we haven't got to that point. I'm just suggesting from the advice we have.
Well, I think we've already got a mover and a seconder, so we've already gone past that, so it'd have to be some kind of amendment. I just want to just clarify that. Ms. Lake, can you just run through, if that's the case, what's the process and the timeline? I know you touched on it.
Before we can do rate modelling and then advertise differential rates, your differential rate must be based on a budget deficit. That's in accordance with the Act. So you need to therefore prepare a draft budget that has rate modelling that matches, so they are complementary. So going out to the community with the intention to charge those differential rates to achieve a budget efficiency. And you don't have that at this point in time. That will take us weeks to prepare. We need to go back and reduce that budget, rerun the rate modelling and present that back.
Okay. And so what you're saying is the budget, therefore, the draft budget will then determine the rate in a dollar based on no deficit, to achieve no deficit.
It needs to be complementary, yes.
Yep. Okay. Councillor Coley. Okay, you can move an amendment.
The amendment would be to ask the CEO to prepare a budget based on a rate in the dollar for UV and GRV that would be the same as last year, as per the table, and meet on Monday the 11th for Council to review, to decide on.
I think Ms Lage has told you that will take weeks and weeks to present what you're asking for, councillor, so there's no way knowing you could present it next week. You're talking a good cup.
Mayor,
3 or 4 weeks, Ms Lage?
We would, Mr Mayor, to do this accurately and give us time to reconcile and make sure the data is correct, we would need 4 weeks to bring this back.
Mayor, I cannot see how knocking out some elements of expenditure, whether it be services or projects, would take 4 weeks to do. We could easily, as a council, these are unusual times. These
We understand
require.
that, councillor, so just back it up a little bit. Ms Lay is the manager of finance, so she can answer that better than us. Ms Lay?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, they are exceptional times. We have a well-established budget process that we follow, and at this point, we should be going out to advertise an array. So therefore, we have stepped into the other processes that we need to run. We have the interim audit happening at the moment. We have new auditors in at the city at the moment going through this. We cannot stop that and refocus back on doing another budget. We can, but you need to give us time to do that today.
Thank you, Ms Lay.
Can I ask through you, Mayor, how long would we actually take? If we push came to shove, if this was moved tonight, how long could staff do this in?
I think Ms Lay just answered that 4 weeks.
I don't think we as council need to be held over a barrel and being told that it's going to take 4 weeks. There are elements within the budget that could be cut out straight away, Mayor, that we could achieve a balanced budget by Monday, in my view.
We're debating already, councillor. We haven't even got that far yet. So it's not a matter of just punching a number and everything changes, councillor, I don't think. So if you're going to propose a motion, and you've already done it, right, so you proposed a motion.
I'm still going through the amendment, if I could. Request the CEO to prepare a budget for the GRV and UV at the same rate of the dollar as 2019-20, and we'd have to obviously meet the following this in another week. Let's say what's the next week? Next Wednesday, then let's push it out from Monday the 11th, 13th, Wednesday the 13th, for council to decide.
Of. So next week.
Yeah. These are exceptional circumstances,
Yeah,
Mayor.
we get the point on it's exceptional, councillors, but we need to discuss how we get a process done. Ms Lady, you understand what Councillor Kiley's proposing.
Is it a special meeting of council, Mr Mayor? What are we doing?
Well, that's a question that needs to be asked. Because, council, at the end of the day, we need to decide what comes off and what doesn't and what we're going to be able to provide for our ratepayers. Bear in mind, councillors, and I don't want to get in debate, bear in mind that we're being asked to provide a significant amount of infrastructure projects and drive our economy and drive our employment. So you start taking dollars out, we can't do that. But your motion is, councillor, if you'd just like to read it.
I'll change that to a special meeting of council. Yes, correct, yes. Request the CEO to prepare a budget for the GRV and UV at the same rate of the dollar as 1920 and conduct a special meeting of council on the 13th of May 2022.
To discuss what's being deleted from the budget, Mr Mayor.
Yes, to discuss what's being deleted from the budget.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Second, Councillor Catalano. Is anyone against?
Hang on.
Yep.
Who seconded the initial motion?
Councillor Catalano. Is
it accepted by the move and the second, Mr Mayor?
Okay, so is this accepted by the mover and the second? Okay. Is there anyone against it? There is? Okay, obviously we're going to have to go to debate it. So it's now part of, well, does it replace the substantive motion?
So it's now part of the substantial motion, Mr Mayor.
Okay, it's part of the substantive motion. It doesn't replace the substantive motion.
It's been accepted.
Okay, right. Okay, so the mover and...
So,
I think it actually needs to replace the substantive motion because
yep.
you can't. I don't think you can vote on Councillor Johnson's motion once you've said vote for him on the budget. It's almost a new motion.
That's what I'm concerned about. Ms Albright, can you give me a bit of guidance on that one, please?
My understanding of what Ms Lay has advised is that to bring Councillor Johnson's motion into form, it essentially needs to be replaced with the motion that Councillor Kiley is putting forward, that the CEO prepares a new budget, brings it back to Council, because the other thing she said in her advice was that the adopting the objects of and reasons for each differential rate and minimum as shown in attachment 1, that would also need to be revised. So I believe that this motion would essentially have to replace Councillor Johnson's motion. If that's acceptable to Councillor Johnson and Councillor Catalano as the seconder, I think we could proceed on that basis.
It looks like it's the same thing, Mr Mayor, just expressed in a different form. So, and it's more effective. So, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Can I ask a question? If this is the motion and it replaces the other motion, at what point does the decision about the rate and the dollar come up?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So my understanding of this motion is that city officers will go away and prepare a new budget, and then we'll bring back to council the differential rates as the same as last year. But at that point, once the council has a draft budget that sits behind it, they can then approve the differential rates to go out to advertisement. So what we would be bringing back to the special council meeting, my understanding of the intent of this motion is we would be bringing back a motion to advertise the differential rates at that point if a budget could be produced.
So just to clarify that, we probably wouldn't get back to the stage we are today for at least 3 or 4 weeks.
That's what Ms Slade has indicated, Mr Mayor.
Irrespective of what we do next week, it's 3 or 4 weeks, at least, to get back to this.
Well, the question, the issue is that request. So next week we'll be coming with this. Carry this motion now. Then next week we're coming back to discuss what's being deleted from the budget, and also, so there's actually 2 parts to this motion. There's the first part, which is the CEO to prepare a budget. At the
Can't
same.
prepare the budget till after you decide what's coming off, Councillor.
I'm just clarifying. I just want to clarify that what we're actually voting on here, because I'm I want to know if this is going to. I'm going to have to agree as to whether this is going to replace it. Okay, so request that the CEO prepares a budget for the rate in the dollar to be the same rate as in the last financial year, and that we'll come back to a special meeting next week to actually discuss what's being deleted from the budget to actually meet that shortfall of 12 million. Correct?
Correct, yeah.
Ms Lake?
Mr Mayor, we could come back next week and have a discussion with councillors and councillors give some direction about what they would like taken off the budget. But we do not have the time to run financial statements and differential rate modelling and bring that next week. It is not achievable, Mr Mayor.
Just a question. I don't think
Councillor,
that this motion is actually saying that, though, is it? This is actually not giving a time frame for the next week for the CEO to prepare the budget. It's just saying that next week we're going to come back and discuss what's being deleted from the budget. So there's two issues. The CEO doesn't have a time frame for preparing a new budget, and that I imagine will be as quickly as possible. And the special meeting will be next week to actually discuss how we can actually cut back the $12 million or raise it through borrowings.
Well, I don't see how the CEO can do one before two is done. How can he start a budget and you haven't given him any direction?
The question then, Mr Mayor, can we just turn it around and go, 1, conduct a special meeting of council, and 2, request the CEO to prepare a budget?
Well, it'd be subject to 2, but I'd just remind you, Council, basically what you've got here is a deferral, and you just defeated a deferral not that long ago.
Well,
So you're contrary to a motion of council already.
it's not a deferral of the item about the rate in the dollar. It's not a deferral about that. It's a deferral about the discussion as to how the budget is going to be recalculated
I'm
to
not
take
going to
into
debate, you just
account
make
that.
comment,
that
Councillor, that's my view.
yes, but it's actually not saying that. What it's saying is that we're going to come back next week to discuss the fact that the rate in the dollar does not rise for the next financial year.
Have you got a question, Councillor?
I'd like to move that we suspend standing orders to discuss this openly, Mayor.
Pretty much already doing that, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, saying that, Mr Mayor, this needs to be resolved.
Okay, well, I've got to move it, councillors, to suspend standing orders for discussion, and a seconder. Is there anyone against suspending standing orders? There is. Do you wish to debate a suspension of standing orders, councillors, after all this time? No. Okay, then standing orders aren't suspended. A further question, Councillor Colley?
Question, Mr Mayor, do I need to vote on it?
Do you wish to debate a suspension of standing orders, councillors? No? Now let's put it straight to the vote then. Those in favour of suspension of standing orders? Five, six. The rest are against, so suspending the standing orders are not suspended, they are still remaining. So now, councillors, we are back to, we have a mover and a seconder to the motion on the board.
No, but we actually
And
need
you're
to
still
approve
councillor
it.
decided whether you're going to make that a standing motion or not.
Well, that's what we're discussing, and a suggestion was made by Councillor Johnson that actually conduct a special meeting of council on the 13th of May to discuss what's going to be deleted from the budget should go first.
Well, whoever is last,
Edmund?
just a moment. Last I heard, what's on the screen was acceptable to the mover and the seconder.
Yep.
It's my understanding, councillors, that's what we need
Well,
to deal with right now.
No, I hadn't actually.
Councillor,
Just
hang on. Just hang on. Just let's get some protocol and manners back in the chamber, please.
Mayor, as it was my amendment, could I ask that 2 precedes 1?
Just to change the order.
Correct.
All right, we'll change the order. I don't. It says the same thing for me, but councillors, anyone against the change that order around? Okay, so we agreed that that now replaces Councillor Johnson's motion. Anyone against? Okay, so anyone against the motion on the board? There is. There are. Okay. Wish to debate it? Councillor Johnson, it's now your motion.
Yes, I do, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, councillors, these are exceptional times, and it was with great trepidation that I put my original alternate motion up. I did ask for advice on it, and I think that is why the motion is not in an ideal form. I didn't get the advice I needed. So I put together the original motion. This motion, I believe, is superior. Councillors, we are in effect moving this decision to another meeting, which I think is a really, really good idea. There needs to be quite serious consideration of how we proceed. Councillors, I prefer we weren't in this position. I prefer that the state government would hold off the GRV revaluation for this year, because they've advised us not to put rates up. But rates are inevitably going to go up for some people as a result of the revaluation, no matter what we do. And what we have here on the table is an attempt to minimise those changes. So, councillors, when we said previously that there was going to be a zero rates rise, in effect, the thinking at the time was that would mean no change to the budget. But unfortunately, the GRV property revaluation means that, as most people out there in the community know, their property values have gone down, and therefore their gross rental value, or their GRV, has gone down as well. But unfortunately, not all members of the community have experienced a reduction in their GRV by the same amount. So, if we keep the budget the same, as we saw from those graphs, which are hard to explain, about 70% of ratepayers will find themselves with a rise in a year when we have not increased the budget. And that is a result of the unfortunate coinciding of the GRV revaluation with this economic and health emergency that we face. Councillors, the proposal we have here is to keep the rate in the dollar the same as last year. So what that means is that is being fair. So there is no rate rise. You're seeing the same rate in the dollar that you had last year. To do that, we need to reduce the budget by, as we've heard, by about $13 million. And as councillors know, I've sent out a long list of things that could potentially be cut. I'm sure lots of other councillors have got great ideas as well. But I think this is the year when we've got an extraordinary time. We need to take extraordinary measures. Councillors, I put this proposal out using a well-known social media platform, and I was astounded by the signal I got from it. When something goes out on social media, you can tell whether it succeeds or fails fairly early on. Councillors, I got an absolutely overwhelming positive response from this, way, way larger than anything else I've ever seen that I've posted. Councillors, this is what the community wants us to do. So they're saying we don't want our rate in the dollar to go up. It was explained, what I have explained is that unfortunately some people's rates will go up as a result of this measure of freezing the rate in the dollar. But what it means is that a smaller number of people's rates will go up, and those people will probably know why their property value didn't go down by as much as everybody else, because they've either improved it, or a new park has been built nearby, or some other new feature has meant that their property has not declined in value by as much as it would have done otherwise. They will most likely know. And if those people feel that their rates rise want to know why they've got a rates rise, there's a simple reason. It is the GRV revaluation this year which has caused it. So, councillors, that is the challenge we're facing. This is the relatively simple solution. So,
you have 30 seconds, councillor.
Okay. I think, councillors, that just about sums it up. So what we're saying is keep the rate in the dollar the same, reduce the budget by $13 million. About 70% of our ratepayers will find that their rates are the same or go down, and a small number, around about 25%, will find their rates go up. That is something we don't want, but to get to a situation where everybody got a zero
I should wrap
rise.
up now, councillor.
All right, I've got about 2 more sentences. We'd either need the GRV revaluation to be withdrawn by the state government, or we'd need to reduce the city's budget by an amount that would be completely unpalatable to everybody. So,
Okay,
councillors,
thank you, councillor.
I urge you to
I have
support
given you
this
extra
motion.
time. The seconder, Councillor Catalano, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. this is a huge issue. It's a massive issue, and I think the article by Josh Zimmerman in the West Australian today just about says it all. And a lot of other councils in Perth have taken heed of the warning that basically ratepayers are going to be very upset. And I mean, ratepayers have said this to me in the past. How can my property prices be falling and still I'm paying more rates? And, you know, I often wondered that myself. But, OK, it's been confirmed the gross rental value has fallen on their properties, and they're expecting a 0% rate freeze. That's been promised in numerous press releases from the City of Swan, and they've opened their rates bill and it's actually higher. They're not going to be happy, and no amount of explaining is going to be able to get around the fact that the City of Swan has two mechanisms that is within its control. And the first mechanism is that they can increase the rates by a percentage. OK, that's frozen this year. But the other mechanism the City of Swan has under their control is to either increase or decrease the dollar, the rateable dollar on the property. So last year for residentials it was around 7.6 cents in the dollar, and this year it's going to be 8.6 if the officer's recommendation was to go through. And that's actually to make up for this shortfall of 12 million, because guess what? Your property prices are less, so that we have to increase the argument is we have to increase the rates to make up for that shortfall because your property is now worth less. But the fact is that we shouldn't just be thinking, well, we'll just ask the ratepayers to pay it. There's a shortfall because the GRV has been reduced, so we'll just ask the ratepayers to pay for it through an increase in the rate in the dollar. No. What we'll do is we're going to look at our expenditure, and we're going to cut back on our expenditure for this year, $12 million. In the next year, it's forecast that around $6.5 million is going to be raised through borrowings for Midland Oval. Well, there you are. There's $6.5 million that can be raised in borrowings this year, and that can actually be put towards giving people this rate freeze that they've been promised, which can be achieved by keeping the rate in the dollar at the same as it was last year. So that will that's 6.5 million. It's only another 6 million. It's not hard when you start looking at the expenditure to see that there are quite a lot of areas that can be cut back. And that does not have to be capital works, because capital works, we want to be able to keep employment opportunities out there. We want to keep the opportunities for improving amenity and enhancing and maintaining amenity. That's what ratepayers expect. But it's the operating expenses. It's the new fleets. It's the new cars. It's the new IT equipment that can be put off for a year. It can be put off for 18 months. Now, we have got our ratepayers deserve no less.
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. Oh, good, thanks. That's great. So it is a very hot issue, and I want us to actually be one of the councils that actually can listen to our ratepayers, that actually can work for our ratepayers, and that can keep the rates down this year, even though we've got this down. The GRVs have been valued down. We shouldn't have to expect ratepayers to make up that shortfall by increasing the rate in the dollar. So I particularly am concerned about young families in the Altone ward who live in subdivisions where actually the...
10 seconds, Councillor.
that will be affected by rate increases because their properties haven't been devalued as much as others. And I want to look to ways to minimise and to keep their rates
Thank you, Councillor.
low. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Speaker against the motion? Councillor Parry.
I don't know whether I feel sorry for Kim in regard to Ms Leahy, sorry, because this is absurd. You cannot keep changing the boundaries. You can't keep changing the goalposts. If we keep changing we only had a meeting last month, I think it was, in regards to the special meeting, I think, or the last few weeks. We all said 0% rate rise. No. Yes.
Point of order, Mayor. I didn't vote
Sorry,
in
my
favour of
apologies.
that.
My apologies. I sincerely apologise. That was my bad.
So.
My apologies, Councillor Cole. I did not mean that. We all said 0%. Now we want to decrease spending again. We hear so many inconsistent messages in regards to the rates in the past few years. We've had 20% rate rise from one councillor. We've had 8% rate rises in Ellenbrook. We've had 2% reductions. Now we want another $12 million off the budget. Where's this going to stop, councillors? You need to put a line in the sand, a goalpost down. You need to understand where we all are and think rationally in regards to this. I've seen the spreadsheet, by the way, in regards to Councillor Johnson, and also your point in regards to reducing expenditure. Let's have a look at that, shall we, councillors? Okay. So we've got materials and charges. Well, we can't reduce that because we're spending more money in regards to the projects. We can't do that. We've got utility charges. Oh, well, that's paid by Western Power and Water Corp. They're going to give us a reduction for sure. Interest expenses? Okay, we'll go to the bank and the Treasury Department. We can get those reduced, surely we can. Then we've got insurance expenses. Oh, yes, WGIS will certainly reduce our charges as well. That's great for us too. And goods and services tax, no, they'll certainly reduce their rates as well. Oh, wait, no, they won't. So let's go through this. Other expenditure was $1.2 million. That's not much. How are we going to reduce that? So the only one I see on payments is employee costs. Now, Councillor Johnson in his spreadsheet said he wants to reduce wages by 5%. That's a slap in the face to all our hard-working staff that we have in this council. It's a slap in the face. I can't bear to see that. And there's lots of other things that we can see as well. Like, for example, the Stock Road. That's not going to reduce our municipal funds. That's going to basically... that's a loan repayment, over a 10-year loan. It's not going to reduce our rates this year. We've got to think rationally when we do this, councillors. We can't keep changing the goalposts. Just because you don't like the decision that's been made doesn't mean you can change it whenever you feel like it. Kim or Ms Leahy needs 4 weeks to prepare a budget. As someone that's done budgets before, councillors, you need those 4 weeks. It's just not drop a number in and everything else like that. You need to be prepared. There's an Abraham Lincoln saying that once said, if you've got 6 hours to chop down the tree, spend 4 hours sharpening the axe. Right now, the way we're doing this, we can get a blunt axe and the residents will suffer because of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Speaker for the motion. Councillor Coley, I saw you first, and I'll take Councillor.
I'm happy to let Councillor Scanlon. I certainly saw her hand first, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to comment quickly on this and a few comments raised in debate, particularly the one about the goalpost. We're not moving the goalpost. COVID-19 has moved the goalpost. It's moved the goalpost for the entire world. The ratepayers are relying on us to help them. We all know people who've lost their jobs. We all know people who've had their incomes reduced. We all know people who are struggling. We all do. Yes, some people are going to survive this relatively unscathed, but many of our ratepayers will suffer a great hardship. We've advertised a 0% rate rise. What we're asking now is to come back together next week. We've met quite infrequently throughout this crisis, and it's something that's really concerned me because we need to be here for our ratepayers. We are the leaders in the City of Swan, and we need to lead. We want to meet next week so that we can discuss how can we reduce the budget and then ask the CEO to direct the staff to go away and change the budget. It may take 3 or 4 weeks. my budgets I prepare are certainly different from the ones that you prepare, Ms Lay, and I'm very grateful to you for the work that you do. And I'd also like to say I do not support a staff pay cut, and I don't think any other councillors here would. So this is something that we can do as councillors and something we need to do. This is a crisis. It's an economic crisis. We as councillors must do what we can do, and all we want to do is come together next week, discuss the budget. What can we remove? Perhaps we can remove councillor entitlements for 6 months. Perhaps we can put the money we would have spent on councillors' travel and education expenses and catering. These are things that the community have asked us to do also, by the way. There are many little things that we can remove as councillors, and there are some big things also. I don't believe this is unachievable. I don't believe it's unachievable. But if it's not achievable, then the CEO will tell us. When we come together next week, we'll say, he'll go over the budget and say, oh, this is what we've got, we couldn't do. We'll continue communication with the staff. I'd urge you all to support this motion, to tell the community that you are willing to come back next week. You are willing to come back for them to discuss the budget and how we can reduce our budget in this time of crisis. It's all we're asking you to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scanlon. Speaker against the motion. Councillor McCulloch.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, councillors voted 14-1 not long ago, and where we are at this stage now, I question whether councillors actually voted according to and knowing and understanding what they were going to vote on. The fact that we are now here really shows me that it is a big concern that what was voted on at that stage, we had councillors voting on things that they didn't know anything about and that they didn't know the ramifications and the implications. So that's a concern to us as councillors and to the professionalism and to the standard that our community expects. Our community and our ratepayers, and they are all our community and all our ratepayers. And I do object sometimes to some of the debate which seems to point out that some councillors are not thinking of the community and not thinking of the ratepayers. So, anyway, I think what we're looking at even here with this motion, after we have an officer recommendation, is, in my view, negligent and irresponsible. It is in the best interests of our community and for our ratepayers in the long term to look at what our hard-working staff, based on council decisions that we should have made, knowing the background and the information, to actually take forward and effect. We're now looking at a motion that includes more staff time, money, redirection of time away from other projects. How do we suddenly expect and demand this after we've had a resolution of council to move forward in one way and ignore hard-working staff? We have so many years of experience and professionalism through our executives and managers, and time again I have seen that pushed to the side with motions that are not necessarily well thought out, sustainable for the long term of the city. You know, I think it's called policy on the run, and policy on the run is policy undone. And we can call it in the best interests of our ratepayers and our community all we want. But I believe, yes, we're all here for the same reason, but let's not pretend what it is otherwise. We're looking at best interests long term. Some of the implications of what this motion is here tonight, councillors, has long-term implications. Yes, we're looking at what we need to do in this environment. Yes, it is an exceptional environment, and we acknowledge that and we have a financial hardship policy in place, and that is going to work really well, and our wonderful staff will make sure that that is implemented to the best of their ability. But councillors trying to find, what did we say, $12 or $13 million on the budget? It could be more, and some of the cutbacks that we're looking at that might even be in relation to operational budgets, you know. Sometimes I wonder, and in my view, some of councillors may have a little bit of a limited understanding as to the idealistic cuts that we might be speaking of here. We're talking about our fleets. Councillors, you look at the long-term ramifications of changing that delicate balance of how we manage our fleet, and that changes the delicate balance of a complex web of finances that changes many, many other things. Many other things. So we need to look at that. We need to look to our staff. Yes, we may have met infrequently at this time, but it hasn't stopped us from asking questions, discussing, covering aspects, researching, and making sure that we are above everything and onto everything. And yes, we do want to lead, and we are all leading. And we want to lead in the right direction. So I do a little bit take offence to that maybe some of us might not be leading as best we could either. I get a bit sick of that. So I think all of that, coming down to it, social media responses to something. I know Councillor Johnson was talking about the responses. I got social media responses to that from knowledgeable ratepayers who said, yeah, no comment. And I'll leave it at no comment. We might have two mechanisms, and yes, we got stuck by the state government with the valuation changes, but we need to look forward. The short term providing for our ratepayers and for our community, and the long term, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. Councillors, think really carefully about this and have a think about how we are perceived, because there's people watching tonight that really have a look at this and start to wonder. Thank you.
Okay. The Speaker for the motion. Question, Councillor Congerton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I could address my question to Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Johnson, yes.
Could you please tell me, Councillor Johnson, what effect of the 7.5088 cents on the GRV will have on the average rate in Midland?
Look, Councillor, what it means is that their rate in the dollar is the same as the previous year. And if their GRV is the same, then they will not experience a change in rates. But as you well know, Councillor, because you have seen the graphs, some people will find that their rates are going up and some people will find their rates are going down. And the purpose of this shift in the rate in the dollar from the officer's proposed 8.5499 to last year's 7.5088 cents means that fewer people will find their rates are going up. That is the purpose, and I think that is very clearly understood out there in community land and the people who are watching. So that is the effect. It will mean less people are getting a rates increase.
Mr Mayor, thank you for not answering my question. So I would like to ask the question again. By applying a 7.5088 cents as the GRV, what do you expect the average ratepayer reduction will happen?
We've been told by the staff, and the staff can correct me if I'm wrong, that the change, the overall GRV reduction is 13.88%. So that is the issue we're dealing with, and that is why we've had to move that line in the sand from 8.5499 to 7.5088, because if we don't do that, an awful lot more people are going to have their rates going up, and they're going to wonder what crazy things are going on in this council. So that is why we're moving it, and if you can find a better way of solving the problem, whether it is in Beechborough or Ellenbrook or Bullsbrook or, I don't know, Cungamire, then please let me know. But this is a sensible, rational proposal that our ratepayers understand that we are not putting up their rate in the dollar. It's as clear as a bell to them, and that means we need to reduce our budget.
Just stick to answering the question.
Thank you very much. I was just thanking Councillor Congerton for giving me the opportunity to debate. Thank you.
Just wonder if you'd like me to help you out with an answer there, Councillor Congerton.
Mr Mayor, thank you. I think the people that are listening to the broadcast would like to know, because what I've now heard as an answer doesn't give them any idea at all. Thank you.
Well, let me help you out, councillors.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
No,
Could Councillor Congleton answer his question, since he's got...
help him out with an answer, because you didn't. Going forward, under the proposed budget, the average rate for residents in Midland was in the last financial year, was $1,207 per household on average, if I'm correct. And in the new budget, it was proposed that that would be about $5 above $1,100. So that is, in fact, an average rate drop of $100 per rate. It's in your documents, councillor. So the logic would suffice to say that if you put in a lower rate in the dollar, it would even be more of a reduction on that average. Yes.
What would be the increase in Ellenbrook?
In Ellenbrook?
If the new rate in the dollar of 8.6, 8.59, 8.6 is approved,
on average,
what will that do to the rates
if you
in
read the
Ellenbrook?
documents you were given on the budget, you'd already know the answer. That's an increase of $3 on average. $3
On average.
average $3. No difference in the average in Midland by 100. Right. So I'm now down to speakers for the motion. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for continuing with this debate. I think at the early stage of this, when I proposed the original deferment, we were not willing to argue it, and that's very unfortunate. I think the community want us to argue this point. Councillors, exceptional times require exceptional measures, and I don't think anybody watching tonight will think that us turning up next Wednesday to discuss where we could actually make cuts to assist the ratepayer is an exceptional measure. Is there anybody in this room that would think turning up to council on a Wednesday night to discuss how we can make savings for the ratepayer is an exceptional measure? The fact of the matter is that everybody else out there in the community are having to tighten their belt, and we aren't. We are to a certain extent, but we haven't actually changed, and I qualify that statement by saying we were looking at a 0% rate increase as a whole before we even went into the COVID crisis. You're all aware of that. We were modelling...
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
We had staff...
Hang on, you've got a point. What did he do with it?
That statement is completely incorrect. We had the special meeting after it was declared by the State Health Minister. So that's incorrect.
I'll get staff to clarify that point.
And if I recall correctly, the modelling was on a 1.6 from the February budget workshop?
Correct. The modelling was on 0 and 1.6, Mayor, and if you'd like to ask Kim Lay that, you could. I'm sure she would agree.
Well, you're asking a question or you're debating, Councillor? Ms Lay? Am I correct? Yes.
From the budget workshop in February, it was 1.6 was the majority.
Yep.
We were then running two models from the March briefing.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Carry on with your debate, Councillor.
I just want to confirm that we were modelling two levels, 1.6 and 0. Is that correct, Ms Lay?
Okay, carry on with your debate.
Thank you, Mayor. So we were looking at a 0% rate increase even before the COVID crisis. And the ratepayers out there need to know that. Effectively, we're not changing anything. We haven't changed anything from the way, apart from we've gone from 1.6 to 0, we were modelling that anyway. There was a potential that councillors could have voted for a 0% rate rise before the COVID crisis. So what on earth have we changed? Seriously.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. That's an incorrect statement again. I'm sorry, but if you read the special meeting minutes, it clearly states what we've changed.
Thank you. So you need to retract that, Councillor. Carry on with your debate.
I'm not retracting anything. We were looking at a zero before the COVID crisis. We were looking at a 0% rate increase overall.
And one, we're looking at both. So carry on with your debate.
Did you ask for a retraction from myself or from Councillor
No, I believe you have
Parry?
a point of order. So strike that and keep going, please.
Councillors, everybody else has to tighten their belts. I don't see why we shouldn't in this unusual time, this exceptional times. Even on the GRV calculation, the date of valuation for people out there in the City of Swan was the 1st of August 2018. So the rates that we paid last year were based on a valuation in 1st of August 2015. The valuation that comes into effect 1st of July this year is based on a valuation done on the 1st of August 2018. And since 2018, our property prices have declined, not even as a result of the COVID crisis. So GRV values have significantly gone down, but they haven't gone down in line with the recent circumstances the state and the world finds themselves in. There is a real anger in the community for us, and I'm sure, not even wanting to meet next Wednesday to discuss how we could make savings. I'm getting emails and text messages all this afternoon when people are starting to realise that we're looking at actually trying to increase the rate in the dollar. We have an opportunity to go out and put a rate in the dollar the same as we did last year. The state government weren't forthcoming in actually keeping the GRV at the same, so it ensured that we had to go with a new GRV. But we do have the opportunity to go out with the same rate in the dollar, and to some extent that is probably the most important thing we can achieve. We're looking at a savings of $12 million.
You've got 1 minute, Councillor.
$12 million. Really, seriously, the thing is tonight, there's councillors around here who are about to put their hand up and say, no, I don't even want to meet next Wednesday to talk about it. Seriously? We'll see how the vote goes, but there's going to be councillors who are going to put their hand up and say, no, I can't be bothered meeting next Wednesday to talk about how we can make savings for the ratepayers. I think it's incumbent upon us all to put our hand up and say we're going to look past this motion, this amendment, and come along next Wednesday and talk about how we can make savings for the ratepayer, because they expect it of us. They expect it of us.
Thank you, Councillor Coley. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Henderson first, and Councillor, we're going to have to speed it up a little bit here. We're going to run out of time. So, Councillor Henderson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, first things first, we are heading towards the same amount of funds to operate the City of Swan as last year. Forget the rate in the dollar argument for the moment. The Premier said, we don't want you to increase the amount of money you take out of the community. That's basically what he said. $120 million odd, whatever the figure was. Now, I can understand that. And I can then go and look at the valuations of all the areas, and I can see some areas have gone down and some have gone up. But I can also see that some councillors had a wish list that was a mile long. Dog parks. I mean, can we afford to waste money on dog parks when we're supposed to be trying to do our best for the community at the moment? We've got $8.8 million, I think it was, that we're going to spend on getting some stuff done that will help our businesses in the area, principally around making sure that we award it to local businesses. In other words, some stimulus to help during these really tough times. That's a lovely tune. I'm going to be brutal about this, and it's straight out political. The Premier has told us not to raise any more money. OK, we won't raise any more money. Values have gone down in some areas, so we have got to adjust the rate in the dollar appropriately. That is our responsibility. Why hasn't the Premier told his Treasurer to have the same GRV UV as last year, and all this problem would go away? All this rubbish that in fact, most of what I've heard tonight is just simply going round and round in circles, coming back to the same ultimate answer, and that is that what we have in terms of the recommendation is a balance to have a no rate increase on average. We're doing the right thing. The government needs to do the right thing. We're actually getting, on balance, no rate increase across the board. Now that's the on balance. Now, some are going to be screaming it went up. Some are going to be saying, hey, look at that, I had an actual drop. Now, even with the changes that we see from 7.5 to 8.5, you're still going to see people are going to have lower rates. So this is just simply a talk fest around something that should have been resolved by the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Speaker for the motion. Further speaker against the motion. I'll take one more, then I'm going to close the debate. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you. I'll try and keep my comments as brief as possible. Everyone should be aware that delivering a budget is a very complex matter. We agreed not that long ago that we would keep the rates the same as last year. And there will always be some variations. Some are going to go up, some are going to go down. But some of the main reasons I can't support the current motion, and if I could refer you all to page 39 of the supplementary agenda, and this was the point I was trying to make earlier through a question, and I may have misphrased the question, is if you look at the unimproved values for UV General, the officer's recommendation was 0.38914, so 0.38. Councillor Johnson's is actually increasing it to 0.39565. So he's actually going to increase those rates. Then if you go down to farmland, the proposal by the officers was 0.28841 and Councillor Johnson's is 0.29. So once again, an increase to those people. We need to make sure that the City of Swan remains sustainable, not only now but both into the future. If we meet next week, and if we do, the first thing I'll be supporting is getting rid of that $8.8 million stimulus package, which would support local businesses who import local employees. It's about getting people back to work. You do get nothing for nothing in this world, councillors. State and federal government actually raise 97% of all income in Australia. Local government raise 3%. And the only way we can do it is through our rates. We have to keep all those infrastructure and what have we got? $2+ billion worth of infrastructure to maintain. Plus we want more infrastructure built. We can only do that. And I think if we evenly and fairly share the load across all ratepayers, whether they be big business, whether they be the heavy commercial, industrial areas, and sometimes the ratepayers. I've had 3 or 4 emails today, almost as a veiled threat, saying, you can't increase, we expect a 0%. Well, I will not cave in to those type of emails. My long-term goal is the sustainable future of the City of Swan, both now and into the future. The ratepayer today may not be the ratepayer in the future, but if what we don't raise in rates this year, you're just putting off. It's a bit like the debate we had a short time ago. I won't say any more, but if this motion fails, then I'll be moving the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. No further speakers. Councillor Johnson, you close the debate.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, Mr Mayor, this motion that I put forward at very short notice, I think is a matter of this council showing some leadership. Councillors, the events have overtaken us. So this emergency came upon us very suddenly, and back on the 22nd of February, when we held our budget briefing, none of us were thinking at all about this emergency. We had no idea it was going to affect us. Then in April we had a meeting. Then in April we had a special meeting in which we set the target for 0 rates rises. Then we had a budget briefing showing us the graphs that demonstrated the changes in GRV, and now here we are at a rate setting meeting. Councillors, things have changed by so much that we need to have this meeting next week to just run through it one more time. And I've heard lots of explanation about how we need to carry on doing the same as we need to keep on going in the same direction. We need to put our heads in the sand. And we've had one councillor saying she wonders what's going on around here. Does anybody know what's happening? Well, there's an emergency, and the community are telling us loud and clear, and it's coming in from Ellenbrook as well, that we need to do something about this. If we just sit on our hands, we're going to find the entire ratepayer community are going to ask, what is going on? What on earth are you doing not adjusting your rates? Why are you not keeping your rate in the dollar the same? Councillors, this is what they're telling us loud and clear. We don't want the rate in the dollar to go up. And we can get the message across to them that we've done our best. We've reduced our budget. Lots of people out there in the community are reducing theirs. Perhaps lots of people around here are not experiencing any belt tightening, but lots of people are. 225,000 Australians have lost their jobs. Councillors, lots of our community have lost their jobs. We need to respond. And the least we can do is to hold a meeting next week, a special meeting of council, to see whether we can bring the rates down by keeping the rate in the dollar the same as next year. Now, councillors, this is a really important motion. If this goes down 9.6, which I'm a bit worried it's going to go down, I think you're going to start hearing about it. So, councillors, please vote for my motion because it gives us an opportunity to think again about how we're going with rates. Please support our community and please show some leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? Motion is lost. Need a move for the staff recommendation. Move Councillor Lucas. Seconded Councillor Parry. Anyone against? There is. Councillor, with the time available, the amount of debate we have, do we really need to debate it?
Yes, I actually did want to make a point.
Well, Councillor, we've made a lot of points tonight, debated it. I struggle to find out more
I'd
we can
actually
make.
like
You
to
can
make a
quick
further point, and
and
that
then
is...
we are closing in 5.
Okay, good, thank you. I just want to make council aware that if we go for an increase in the rate in the dollar, that...
Point of order, I'm sorry, Mayor. Look, I know time is short, but
I just wanted to make...
if we're going to have some debate, it should be opened by the mover.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep, so...
I actually do want to speak.
Good, yes, I want to...
The mover wish to speak?
Very briefly, as I said earlier, the rating, we spend as a council more time on rates than any other local government in Western Australia and I dare say the whole of Australia. We have got a dedicated team. We're trying to get the best outcome during these unprecedented times, and any rate rise that anyone is forced to endure can be squared back purely on the shoulders of the state government for not freezing the gross rental values. The Premier came out and asked local governments, don't raise any more money than what you did last year. We adopted that motion, but unfortunately the state government is not doing their part, and I'll be having further discussions with the budget team, the Mayor and the CEO about not including the ESL on this year's budget rate notices, because the state government is not even adopting their budget until after we have to put our budget out. And I'll save any other comments after I've heard Councillor Catalano. Thank you.
Councillor Parry is the seconder. Wave your right. Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thank you. As I was saying, there's a lot of ratepayers in and with young families that have moved into these new subdivisions, and if you look at the tables that were presented to us, it is actually these new subdivisions that where the GRV has fallen the least, and with the increase in the rate in the dollar, it is these young families with these big mortgages, because these were properties that were purchased in the last boom, property boom, young families, and they are going to have effectively the highest rate increase. So I think that I cannot support the officer's recommendation. I cannot support an increase in the rate in the dollar. I cannot support an increase in rates for young families who are desperately going to have to find ways to pay their rates this year. We don't actually have the rates policy that makes it more flexible, the instalment plan, or whatever you want to call it, the arrears policy that makes it more flexible over a 2-year period, which would have been a little bit more of a help. This council didn't vote for that either. So effectively, we've got these young families now are going to do it tough, and we're going to see foreclosures. These are recently mortgaged families, compared to the suburbs like Midland, where there's more elderly people who've paid off their homes a long time ago, and where the gross rental value has fallen substantially, and yes, they won't be paying as much through the increase in the rate in the dollar. So I just wanted to point that out, that how that is affecting these young families in these new estates. And I think, as I pointed out before, this is a multi-million-dollar organisation, a budget of, I think we're going to raise $120 million in rates, $12 million. I mean, we can make those cuts. We can and we should. But anyway, that's gone and passed, so that's why I won't support this tonight. And finally, I think that ratepayers will be very, very upset and very angry to find that their rates have increased when they've been promised publicly a number of times by this council that they were going to have a rate freeze. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, I rise on this case to speak, and then I'm going to close the debate. I'll make it very clear, and I know it's been mentioned, very, very clear, that the City of Swan is not drawing any more revenue. We have frozen rate revenue. Now, every third year, and a number of councils here at the last reval, we always have the same situation where valuations, GRV and UV, fluctuate. And some people will get a rate rise or a rate decrease different to the rate that we set. So we are raising the same revenue as last year. But we're now being asked to sacrifice income to provide initiatives and incentives and assistance to various other businesses and community groups and so on. We're also being asked to stimulate our economy, to provide infrastructure projects. We brought $9 million worth of infrastructure projects forward to stimulate our economy. But yet now we want to go and look at taking infrastructure projects away. Remember, councillors, all the money we spend on those infrastructure projects goes back into our economy. It provides jobs for our people. It provides income for our people. It provides a cash flow for the associated businesses around it. We moved a motion, councillors, we're going to give preference to local businesses and suppliers. If you're not familiar with the circular economy, councillors, I suggest you go and find out what it means. I'd also remind councillors, again, that on the 15th of April, 14 of us, voted for what we have here to the situation we are in today. Now, if by some chance anyone here did not know what they were voting for, I would not put my hand up and say you didn't know, because you have fiduciary right to be across what you are voting for. Bear in mind, 2 councillors in this room also wanted to move a zero rate rise. One of them stood on the side of the road with a sign, yet didn't bother to go and find a mechanism to do that and how it could be affected. When you ask for zero rates, there are multiple outcomes which you now start to realise, councillors. We have frozen our rate revenue. It's the distribution that changes, and it changes every reval year. A lot of stuff's been talked about GRVs, but no one mentions the UVs. By changing our rate back to last year, most of your UV properties that would have got a rate decrease are going to get an increase. Justify that to at least 1,000 people in Bullsbrook. Not to mention Gidgee Gun up in the Swan Valley. Councillors, we have a role to lead our economy out of this. We have a leading role. We've been asked time and time again from the Minister of Local Government. I can show you a webinar where he banged on his desk and screamed at us. Raid your reserves, borrow more money, drive projects, bring forward whatever you can. And the state are now starting to bring projects to support that as well. Councillors, I can't support deferring this anymore. We need to move on with our budget so we can adopt our budget and start to provide our economy. I now ask the mover to close the debate.
Question, Mr Mayor. Can other councillors who wish to speak please speak?
No, Councillor, we're closing the meeting straight after the mover speaks, and I'll be moving those items not withdrawn. So, Councillor Lucas.
Thank you for the right of reply. As I said, this has been a very unusual and difficult year for everyone. I think I pretty well covered all the points I need to cover originally. I heard Councillor Catalano say we promised a 0% rate freeze. Well, we've delivered that. If people, and particularly other councillors, if they didn't understand the variations that could come out of that, now want to go back on the items that we put into the budget only in the last month by adding extra stimulus packages, making sure that this council remains sustainable. Nobody likes paying rates. Nobody. But it's a fact of life. So I'll end it there, Mr Mayor. I think we owe it to our staff we owe it to our community to make sure that our budget is adopted and goes out on time so we can get the rates coming in so we can continue all those projects that we have agreed to in their budget. Thank you. 14 of us.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Okay, those in favour of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And one on the screen, was it? Councillor Richardson. Okay, in favour of the staff recommendation. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. Now move to those items that have not been withdrawn, be moved in bulk. Moved to Councillor Parry, seconded to Councillor McCulloch. Is anyone against? We declare those carried. Councillors, we now adjourn the meeting, but I need to move a time to re-adjourn, and I'm proposing 5:13 Monday evening. Can I have a mover to that effect? Moved to Councillor Congdon, second to Councillor Kiley. I assume there's no one against. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, everybody. Declare the meeting closed.